Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Recharge Zone podcast. My name is Ann-Margaret, and I'm here with my co-host, Brent.
Hi, Ann-Margaret.
Hi. So, everyone, we are here back with another episode, and today we are pleased to welcome Sara Beesley, EAA Chief Development Officer for the Edwards Aquifer Authority and Executive Director of the Edwards Aquifer Conservancy. Welcome, Sara.
Hey, happy to be here.
Sara comes to us from Mitchell Lake Audubon Center. That was her previous employment, where she led a team of staff, oversaw regional partnerships and conservation initiatives, built donor pipelines and secured new funding sources, and successfully advocated for city bond project funding for on-site infrastructure and improvements. Is that right, Sara?
Yes, I did.
So we're here to talk about all things Edwards Aquifer Conservancy. Sara, with over 20 years of experience in nonprofit leadership, fundraising, and conservation program management, can you share with us a little about your career journey and how you decided on the EAA as your next adventure?
Sure, absolutely. I spent the last 12 years with the National Audubon Society, where I served as the executive director for Mitchell Lake Audubon Center, which is on the south side of San Antonio. It's home to a 600-acre lake and 300 acres of wetlands, so water has always been important to my work. Quick fun fact, nonprofit work is actually my second career. After college, I was a stage and production manager for theater and opera.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so here in San Antonio and then also in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I'm originally from California. So I grew up with kind of the knowledge of water conservation, and I understood that concept from a really early age. That was something that when we grew up, that was just part of school.
Yeah, ingrained in y'all,
Totally
right?
ingrained. So working with Audubon and in the environmental space in San Antonio and in Texas, it was becoming more and more obvious that water security is one of the most important issues, if not the most important issue in Texas. So especially when it comes to securing our future. So the opportunity to work for the EAA and the EAC and really focus on water conservation during a critical time in Texas history was very appealing. And I felt it lent me the opportunity to do more and make a bigger impact for the future of our children.
Well, that's awesome. And now learning all about you and your background, maybe we could talk a little bit about the Conservancy itself. I know we've spent years now teaching people all about the EAA, but what is the Edwards Aquifer Conservancy?
Sure. So the Edwards Aquifer Conservancy, or the EAC, as we lovingly refer to it, our mission is to support the Edwards Aquifer Authority and its mission to manage, enhance, and protect the Edwards Aquifer system, which, as we all know, is a vital source of water for drinking, agriculture, and other essential purposes for over 2.5 million Texans. We are actually a Type 1 support organization, so that means we're a separate 501c3 nonprofit organization, but our mission is to exclusively support the EAA and their work.
And Sara, can we talk a little bit about how the Conservancy supports the authority's work?
Absolutely. So we envision a sustainable Edwards Aquifer system preserved by building partnerships for financial and in-kind support, which enhances aquifer research and education, protects key landscapes within the aquifer's watershed, and accelerates existing and new conservation practices. So there's a couple ways that we do this. One is through supporting the EAA's Conservation Grant Program. It matches EAA funds for installation of improved irrigation efficiency equipment, which replaces the need for flood irrigation, which is a low efficiency practice. So this reduces the amount of water needed for agriculture and promotes water conservation, especially in the more rural areas. So this program helps regional farmers transition from this water-intensive irrigation to much more efficient systems. Another way that we do it is through our Aquifer Sustainability and Resiliency Program, also known as our Conservation Easement Program. Conservation easements are voluntary, legally binding agreements that restrict certain types of land use to protect the conservation values of the property. So landowners who participate in this program get to retain the ownership and the ability to use their land while ensuring the long-term protection of the water quality and natural habitats critical to the aquifer's health. So these conservation easements reflect the commitment of those local landowners in preserving the integrity of the Edwards Aquifer for future generations. So we focus on key landscapes within the aquifer recharge zone and contributing zone, and establish best land management practices, nature-based solutions. We want to ensure the maximum amount of recharge enters into the aquifer. So the EAA conducts nature-based solution research at our Field Research Park property, which we own, and we also support those efforts.
So I would say through the Groundwater Conservation Grant Program, last year, Isabel works in the regulatory affairs department. I had the pleasure of going out west when we were highlighting and interviewing some of those grant recipients from the Pepsi grant donation. And it was amazing to hear the farmers firsthand talk about how it's life-changing to have something like this. I recall one of the farmers even saying, there's no days off. I've spent so much time making sure that I can properly, water my crops. He's like, all hours of the day, in the morning to the late evening. And that was before receiving the pivot irrigation system. And so after that, he was like, I feel like I can have a more manageable grasp on what I'm doing and how I'm watering my crops. And I feel like I can live my life a little bit, not having to be out here all hours of the day. And he's like, no vacations, no going anywhere. You always have to be close to your land. But with that being a grant recipient and receiving that, you could see like a weight lifted off his shoulders and just being like, okay, I'm conserving water, but I'm also helping myself efficiently water these crops instead of using flood irrigation.
Another project I was thinking about was the Dissinger Ranch conservation easement. Wasn't that piloted through the EAC? Wasn't that an EAC project?
It is an EAC conservation easement. Yeah, it was one of our first.
Yes, and even that, right? Like, I don't know how many acres of conserved.
Oh, it's incredible.
land.
I think it's 1,200 acres, and it's an extremely valuable property that was more or less donated through a grant from the Microsoft Corporation to the EAC. And then the landowners made pretty much a huge gift at a major discount with the property, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't do it without our donors.
Yes, right. It's incredible to see, how the Conservancy has grown over the years. Can you share with us, we mentioned Pepsi, we mentioned Microsoft. Can you share with us how businesses in our community can support the Conservancy?
Sure. Businesses can help by spreading the word and educating their neighbors and everyone about the aquifer and how important it is. So if you want to learn more, you can visit the EAA's Education Outreach Center, which we do have businesses that help us provide transportation grants so that students will be able to attend field trips for free. So they come aquifer ambassadors.
Yes, we love those ambassadors.
Yes, so definitely people like San Antonio Water System and Laguna Water Supply have both helped us with those grants. You can follow us on social media, tag us when you do water conservation work. It's Edwards Aquifer Conservancy on Instagram and EA Conservancy on Facebook. But you can learn about what we do and then share with your network, make sure other people know who we are. And then, of course, make a donation. 100% of the funds that are donated to us go directly to funding our programs. So it's not going to overhead, because of our relationship with the EAA, we're able to put 100% of those funds into our programs.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty unique for a 501c3.
Yes. And I would say it's been my pleasure, and I know I can speak on behalf of most of us, to be able to see these projects to come to fruition through the being a recipient of the grants, or the monies that have come through the Conservancy have made a huge impact in many ways. Like you were mentioning, through the Education Outreach Center and having students be able to go and visit the center and learn about the aquifer, to the conservation easements and the land that's been protected through the Conservancy's efforts of, helping the EAA get those properties and conserve those lands. So to me, I think it's been a wonderful thing that the Conservancy has done.
So our listeners can take an easy takeaway from our discussion here. What are maybe 3 things you want people to remember about the EAC?
I think it's going to be 3 words, which is protect, enhance, conserve. As a conservancy, that's what's most important, is the support for our aquifer. We're working towards a sustainable Edwards Aquifer system, and we can't do that alone. So we need your help and partnership to ensure water for the future of Texas.
Yes. And so I know you shared a little bit how people can follow along or learn more by visiting the website, going to social. I know that you have plans of recruiting people, or I think they can go to the website and be a subscriber, right?
Yes, you can definitely go to the website, sign up for our newsletter, which will get started later this year.
Awesome.
Very excited. You can also follow us on social media. As you mentioned, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Our website is eaconservancy.org.
Is there also a donate button through the website?
There is, and actually we just added, so now you can do Apple Pay, Venmo, PayPal. So however you prefer to give, or whatever you already have on your phone, your computer, you can just log right on and make a quick donation without even having to pull out a credit card.
That's awesome. Sara, I was going to ask you, I know this, I'm just talking, I can edit this out. I know for this news drop, we're going to talk about the donation, the grants. Was there anything in the previous news drop that you wanted to share on the episode? Because it was like your intro, you talked about, like, you kind of gave an overview of the Conservancy. It's kind of everything we talked about right here, right?
Yeah.
And then we touched on the grants. Maybe we can talk about where you see the Conservancy maybe in the next 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Conservancy has so much opportunity. Being its first official executive director really lends so much opportunity. And that's one of the reasons why I took this position, is I was so excited to be able to take on something new and exciting and lead it strategically. Because I think it's always been kind of an afterthought to the EAA, which is they have lots of big things that they do. So that's totally understandable. So I'm excited to be able to wake up every morning and think about, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So we definitely want to expand that conservation easement program. We want to look at those key landscapes across the recharge zone, contributing zone, and maybe some other areas, but we want to make sure they're high value areas that we're conserving. That's one of our number one goals. And then, just being a strong nonprofit, building our donor base, building our supporter base, making sure we are educating the public about the aquifer and aquifer sustainability.
Yes. And Brent, speaking, going back to those conservation easements, so we have a news drop publication where you can go digitally subscribe to it. You can read it digitally, or you can also pick up a printed version at our Education Outreach Center. But in our most recent first issue of the year, we shared about the conservation easements that we help manage, that the City of San Antonio helps manage. Can you kind of speak to those a little bit, Brent?
Yeah, this was a great opportunity to showcase just the growth of easements overall as a conservation tool in the region. And the article goes through all the different types. Early on, we're talking 1980s and 90s, groundwater conservation districts, and eventually the EAA helped purchase some of the earliest easements. And those led and helped build the development of the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program, the city's program, which of course added hundreds of millions of dollars of funding into easements. And eventually, like we just talked about, the Dissinger Ranch conservation easement was brought forth from the EAC in a partnership with Microsoft. So the article showcases all those different easements and where they're at and how they were funded. And hopefully in the future, we'll have many, many more.
Yes, and Government Canyon is a conservation easement too, right?
Yeah, that's the one I was kind of talking about. That was, late 90s, one of the first easements that was purchased for protection of the aquifer in this area. So
that's amazing. That even back decades ago, they had the foresight to be like, we should protect the land over the recharge zone. That makes sense.
Yeah, for $1 million, by the way, it would be worth 100 times that now.
That's incredible. And we don't have a visual, obviously, because this is a podcast, but if you go and you read that article, it just shows you how much conserved land that would otherwise have been developed on right smack dab over the recharge zone, right, in the contributing zone areas.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we purchase easements, is that they're perpetual agreements. So from 50 years from now, they will remain just native landscapes and not parking lots, golf courses, city infrastructure, you name it. They're meant as a buffer, a kind of a watershed buffer, both for quantity and quality of water entering the aquifer.
And that's incredible, because those are preserved lands that will essentially outlive us and go into future generations that future generations will continue to protect.
Yeah, we talk about legacies around here, and the Conservation Easement Program is a legacy program like no other.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
It will outlive all of us, and so that's why I really think it's one of the best tools for conservation.
Yes. And so together, the Conservancy and the Edwards Aquifer Authority are going to make some major changes and make a difference in conserving and preserving the Edwards Aquifer.
That's the goal.
Well, Sara, it's been a pleasure to have you here. We cannot wait to see what's the year has in store for the Conservancy, and we look forward to being subscribed to your newsletter and following along on social, making sure that we're tuning into the website to see all the things that y'all are going to be doing this year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Recharge Zone podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. Have questions, ideas for topics, or things you would like to share with us? Well, reach out to us by emailing us at rechargezone@edwardsaquifer.org or drop us a comment in your favorite podcast hosting platform. The Recharge Zone podcast is the official podcast for the Edwards Aquifer Authority, a groundwater district which protects the portion of the Balcones Fault Zone Edwards Aquifer, a jurisdictional area that provides water for over 2.5 million South Central Texans and covers more than 8,000 square miles across 8 counties. Tune in to charge up your knowledge on all things Edwards Aquifer from the EAA.